Guten Tag. In Barmherzigkeit und Wahrheit liegt Versöhnung. In mercy and truth, there is reconciliation. If you listen long enough and you look long enough, people would actually tell you who they are. But sometimes they actually tell us who they are from the get-go. But the problem is we never paid attention. We never carefully and critically look at their actions or listen to what they said. And that is the devastation. That is the problem. That sometimes we get cornered, we get hooked, we get surrounded, we got drawn in to their trap before we recognize actually who they are. And this applies to all sorts of relationships, from casual, personal, and intimate. So, some of these so-called revolutionaries, some of these people pretended that they were also strong socialist Marxists who cared about the poor and working class and cared about the proletariat. We saw through them from the inception, and many saw through them from the inception and tried to warn the people that they were wrong, but they didn't listen until eventually it was too late. But now, 40 years after, the lepers have not changed their skin. 40 years after, the very things that they did then, they are currently doing. And if you pay attention, you would see, if you had missed it 40 years ago, if you pay attention right now, you would see them for what they truly are. So you remember when they used to talk about the children are the flowers of the revolution. You know, again, back then they had all these fancy speeches and these fancy slogans. Today, one thing I could say that these young charlatans, they would have looked pretty well on television, or they would have looked pretty well on social media. That's why I tell you that these people, a lot of them are Obama-esque character. You know, hope and change. Hypnotize the people with sweet speeches. That's what they're about. There's no substance in what they say, but it's emotional language. And for the unsuspecting mass of people, they would be intoxicated by it. A lot of that happened during the revolution. There was a sort of social drunkenness and intoxication with sweet speeches. But back to what I was saying about how much you can, if you pay attention, carefully pay attention, listen and look, that you can see through a lot of these people who pretend to be some great revolutionaries and who pretend to care so much about the mass of Grenadian people. But indeed, there are wolves in sheep clothing. Scriptures warn you about them. They're ravenous. The emphasis is on ravenous wolves in sheep clothing. That is what they are. So you see, this gentleman comes along after mercy was granted and no truth was expounded. No truth concerning what actually happened was expounded. And we accepted all the lies and the deceptions and the lack of responsibility. And you would think after, such beautiful mercy was granted, you would think, okay, that this gentleman would come along and he would want to do things that will uplift the people of Grenada. As a sort of redemption, you would think that he would want to quietly engage in activities that would lift the mass of people of Grenada. But instead, what does he turn around and do? Just like how they wanted to be like Marsh, okay, during 1983. Now they have become, in some respects, intellectual petit bourgeois. That's what they've become. That's what they always wanted to be. They were pretending to be some socialist Marxists, but that is also one of the reasons they despise Morris Bishop, because he was not one of them. But they wanted to be like him. They wanted to be a petit bourgeois. And that is why you see they got involved with the socialist Marxist movement, because they wanted to be elites. And they became elites. So now they are intellectual petit bourgeois. That's why you see he's parading as some big-time constitutional lawyer. And the actual constitutional lawyer, Dr. Francis Alexis, a man which I have dear respect for and love, has actually associated himself. This man has tarnished his image by associating himself with this sort of treachery against the Grenadian people, with this sort of fringe movement, with this sort of, you ain't sure, but let's see how far we could push the boundaries of constitutional power. There's always a saying, when in doubt, there is no doubt. When in doubt, there is no doubt. So you would think that Dr. Francis Alexis, okay, would have associated himself with something a little more noble. But instead, he has joined with socialist Marxists to help with the onslaught of worldwide white demon globalists whose intent is to destroy and to strangle and to control and to unravel the young men and women of Grenada. This is what, and I know you understand this, Dr. Francis Alexis. I know you do. You're a man of an immense intellect. So you know what you're associating with when you associate with these local socialist Marxist remnants, and when you facilitate these white globalist demons, and you sell out over 60,000 young people of your population. I thought with age, one should become more humble, more noble, more philanthropic, more charitable in the sort of things that they engage in the sort of things that they want to be associated with, that they want to leave a legacy for themselves. But if this is what you do in your golden years and this is what you want to be remembered for, then I don't know. Then you've become blinded. You have in some respects lost a bit of your way. That you would think that the wisest thing to do is to be associated with socialist Marxist remnants who almost destroyed Grenada in 1983. That you would support, that you would assist them and facilitate them getting some sort of intellectual victory and some sort of boost to their ego, that you would want to be associated with that. You, the most ardent warrior against them in the 83 period, that you have come now and you've associated yourself with them. What is this about? What is this about? That you guys are now some sort of intellectual petit bourgeois? Do you know? As a matter of fact, I shouldn't ask you if you know, because I know you know and you understand who would be disproportionately affected by this bill. Yeah, intellectual petit bourgeois sons and daughters, you guys would not be affected. You know who would be affected? The poor and working class people, their sons and daughters. So I want you to see this for what it is. I want you to understand. I'm appealing to the poor and working class people of Grenada. You have to understand that this bill would disproportionately affect your sons and daughters. Okay? And as if these socialist Marxist trained doctors, as if they get some sort of high, have the opportunity to attend to younger and younger girls. I don't know. I don't understand. Is this some sort of sick mindset? That's why you would get on board and want to facilitate this sort of thing. And these utter hypocrites, they always cloak themselves and they give you see the names they give their law firms and law office? They associate them with some real warriors and the nativist people of the Caribbean. This is a cloak. You should be suspicious of people like that. They pretend to be some sort of revolutionary, but they're hypocrites. Because again, this gentleman, if he really wanted to do something to uplift the flowers of Grenada, if you truly wanted to do that, he would have engaged in something entirely different. As a matter of fact, he would have been anti this bill. If he truly wanted to protect the sons and daughters of Grenada, young sons and daughters of Grenada, he would have been anti this bill. But no, again, he wants to be part of some intellectual petit bourgeois class. These guys are not revolutionaries. Can you see them for what they are? They're not revolutionaries. They're utter hypocrites. But there is no surprise here. They've abandoned you in the past in your darkest moments. They've abandoned you in 83 after they pretended to be such bajans for Grenadians. They abandoned you. And who was left alone? The regular, poor, and working class Grenadian man and woman to defend their country against a vastly superior army. And they ran and hide. Okay? So I want you to see this moment as a sort of battle, a spiritual battle, especially against the forces of darkness and the principalities of power that are trying to capture your youth. So you have got to take a stand. You have got to resist this. You have got to let your voices be heard. The poor and working class people of Grenada, this is about you. This bill is against you. This is a direct attack on you and your sons and daughters. And you have to see that. So you have to stand and say, look, we are not going for that. We are not on board. We're not with this. This, I have said over and over, is a watershed moment. If you allow them to get through with this, if you do not stand and let your voices be heard, and they get through with this, it will be over. They will use the same mechanism over and over to shove things down your throat, so to speak, that is not desirable for you. You would have said, yes, I agree with what you've done. You would have put your head in the sand and allow them to achieve their goals and objectives that are anti-you, not in your best interest. But if you're bold, if you're brave, and if you stand and you politically let your voices be heard, then the victory is yours. Then the victory is yours. You would regain your dignity. You would regain your respect. You would send a very stark and clear statement that, you know what? I'm done with the sweet talk, sweet speeches. I'm done being hypnotized, and I'm done with ice cream pants. And now, the poor and the working class people of Grenada would say, I am going to do for me what is in our best interest. I am going to take the destiny of myself, and I am going to take the destiny of my sons and daughters in my hands. And I would not allow globalist demons, white liberal globalist demons, to control, to toy with, and to ultimately destroy my sons and daughters. If you never took a stand for anything else in your life, today, you have to make a commitment to yourself. You have to make a commitment to your sons and daughters to take a stand for them. Their future and generations after them future depends on what you do today. So I want you to reassert your political strength, your political power, and let your representatives know that you are there to represent us. But I will stand. I will stand in defense of Grenadian people, and especially the young men and women. I know they're misguided right now. They're misguided by you intellectual petit bourgeois who hypnotize them with sweet speeches and ice cream pans. But I will stand in defense of them. I will expose your intellectual dishonesty. I will expose your hypocrisy. I will expose your pretense. Coming and talking about you love Morris Bishop and you want to be like Morris Bishop. And your bedfellows with the haters of Morris Bishop. Your bedfellows, not just with the haters of Morris Bishop, But these people didn't just do something personally to Morris Bishop. They betrayed a nation of people. They betrayed the nation's trust. that betrayed the nation's collective psychology. People believed in them. That is why you see it is so difficult for people to now believe in anything that's substantive. That is why you see they get caught by any little Kool-Aid, anything you throw at emotional bullshit. That is why you see they get caught by anything, you know. They don't want to take the time to believe in anything that's real because their heart has been broken by these people. Again, so this gentleman, he's no revolutionary. He's no revolutionary. He's a hypocrite. Good luck. You guys are happy now. You have achieved your lifelong goals of becoming petty bourgeois. You're happy now. You have deceived the Grenadian people. You have destroyed their intrinsic ambitions, real ambitions, by selling them a lie and pretending that you are what you weren't. And now you've become what you always wanted to become, petty bourgeois. That is what you've become. And now you are ultimately betraying the working class people of Grenada and the poor. Because you know, deep down, you know that this bill would disproportionately affect poor and working class people in Grenada. But you support it. But you support it. What does it do? Gives you a hard on? It makes you feel that you're powerful? Is that what this is about? What? You and your comrades feel powerful again? That you can take advantage of Grenadian people? That you can deceive people who are unaware, like you deceived them in 1983? That's what makes you feel good? That you feel powerful again? That you can be part of an institution again that aims to intimidate the people of Grenada and to coerce them into doing things that they don't want to do? Do you get a hard on? Does it make you feel good? Does it really make you feel good again? You feel powerful again? You had an opportunity in 83 to exercise all the power you wanted to exercise. You had all the power in 83. When you could have exercised all that macho man thing. You had the opportunity in 1983 to exercise all the power you wanted to exercise. From October 25th. Where were you? Why didn't you exercise that power then? You had the opportunity, as I would tell you, and I would tell you guys again. There was one man with courage among you guys. There was one man with balls and courage among you guys. And that is the lieutenant. And, you know, as you know, we used to say back then, the lieutenant. That's the man with courage and balls. And this guy could have a very illustrious military career. Could have retired as a Grenadian hero. But unfortunately allowed himself to be used like people like yourself and the others. The others who wanted to become petty bourgeois. This man always wanted to be a soldier, real soldier. And you guys saw that in him. You took advantage of that. And in some respects, you used him. But you guys, you wanted to become petty bourgeois. Well, congratulations. You guys have arrived. You are now officially intellectual petty bourgeois. Congratulations.